you want to make sure that in your brush settings transfer is taken off so it doesn't affect the opacity of your brush when you push hard and lightly. In this way, for our thumbnails, they'll be very readable straight away with the 100% opacity and their flat values. Let's start with a new thumbnail. So for this one I'm using a mixture of techniques from hand painting to also lasso selections, and I'm going to fill that in. I'm using a darker value here, so this is what's closer to the camera, and the lighting for this one I'm thinking more like sunrise, so more higher contrast image. You can see again I do a quick stripe for the background mountains, and again because it's stylized we're aiming for, not realistic, you have to reduce the amount of detail that you use. So I'm using just quick marks across for the sky with different values, again without adding too much detail. And you can see with the values I've got distinct planes, with the darkest trees going back to the mountains in the far distance, it's a lighter grey. I'm also thinking about some water, so I've striped that across the bottom with a slightly darker value and adding in the reflection of some of the elements there. To give the trees more depth as they come towards the foreground, I'm trying to curve it round more to get a nice shape as it goes away in space. I'm further refining the distant trees, so just trying to get a nice kind of fluid feel to it. And now flicking a little bit of reflection again for the mountains in the distance. Working on it a little bit more, playing with the reflection. I'm trying to think now how it's going to work, if I'm going to add the sunrise in as well, so playing around with the shapes a bit more. And now I've decided to have a little bit of a loop as it comes towards the camera, so it kind of drives your eye into it. Now using the lasso tool to create some more angular trees, I thought it'd be quite nice to have a contrast, so I'm trying to do that now to see what happens. Now I've added a quick pathway which leads your eye into a small house. Again, we're stylizing it, so I tend to make the house bigger than it would be in reality. Here I'm just adding some light where it hits the roof, and just making sure that it brings the form out. So when you work on the background, it's good to think, if you add in different elements like a house or whatever, is it a lighter house on a darker background, or is the house darker than the actual mountains behind it? Always think light on dark or dark on light, and that will help you to construct your background better. I'm adding a sun here, and I don't use the brightest value for that. I could do if I wanted to, but it's best to avoid really high values and very, very dark, so you get like a more broader range to your image. Now as it's stylized water, we don't again want to put hundreds of ripples there because it will start to overwork it in a way, and it's a thumbnail. So I just put suggestions to give the impression that it's water without overworking it. Okay, so this is it for this thumbnail. So what I want you to do now is fill several pages, aim for 3 or 4, full of thumbnails to visualize your ideas for your game level, and then you can start to pick the best ones from those and then work on color afterwards.